It's easy to look at a name like ALCO and just assume they always built powerful locomotives, massive machines of steel and steam that conquered the American landscape. But what if I told you that the very existence of this legendary company was born not out of a singular vision, but from a dramatic struggle for survival among many smaller players? Imagine a time when dozens of independent builders, each with their own designs and ambitions, fought tooth and nail for every single order. The market was fragmented, the competition fierce, and the future uncertain for many of these proud manufacturers. This intense, almost brutal environment forced a radical change, a desperate measure to stay afloat in a rapidly industrializing nation. The shocking truth is that ALCO, the American Locomotive Company, was ultimately a product of consolidation, a coming together born of necessity to face overwhelming market pressures. At the turn of the 20th century, the United States was a nation rapidly expanding, and railroads were the arteries of its growth. Demand for locomotives was immense, but the supply side was a chaotic free-for-all. Instead of a few dominant players, the industry was dotted with a multitude of independent locomotive builders, each with a regional presence and a fiercely competitive spirit. Companies like Schenectady Locomotive Works, Brooks Locomotive Works, and Pittsburgh Locomotive and Car Works were all making their mark, alongside many others across the country. These individual companies were often highly specialized, some known for specific types of engines, others for their manufacturing prowess. But this fragmentation created inefficiencies and intense price wars. Railroad companies, eager to maximize their profits, would often pit these builders against each other, driving down prices to unsustainable levels for many. This era was characterized by a seemingly endless stream of orders for locomotives, but also by thin profit margins, and the constant threat of being undercut by a rival. Imagine a market where innovation was constant, but financial stability was elusive for all but the most well-managed firms. The pressure to consolidate and gain market share was palpable, a growing rumble beneath the industrial surface. The sheer number of manufacturers meant that no single company held significant sway over the market. Each builder had to constantly innovate and compete on price, quality, and delivery times. While this might sound good for the railroads, for the builders themselves, it was a high-stakes gamble. Many smaller shops struggled to keep up with the demands of increasing production volumes and the need for capital investment to modernize their facilities. The competitive environment was further complicated by economic downturns that periodically hit the nation. During these periods, locomotive orders would plummet, leaving many builders with idle factories and mounting debts. The cycle of boom and bust was particularly brutal for an industry with such high fixed costs. It became clear to many industry leaders that this unsustainable model couldn't continue indefinitely. The idea of forming a larger entity, capable of weathering economic storms and exerting more control over pricing, began to take root. This wasn't just about growth, it was about survival in a cutthroat world where the fittest, or perhaps the largest, would endure. The shocking reason for ALCO's creation wasn't a sudden invention or a government mandate. It was the culmination of years of intense, often brutal competition, and the realization by many independent builders that they simply couldn't survive alone. The idea was simple: merge to eliminate ruinous competition, achieve economies of scale, and create a dominant force in the locomotive manufacturing industry. In 1901, a groundbreaking consolidation occurred. 8 prominent American locomotive manufacturers decided to pool their resources, their designs, and their futures to form the American Locomotive Company, or ALCO. The key players in this unprecedented merger included Schenectady Locomotive Works of Schenectady, New York Brooks, Locomotive Works of Dunkirk, New York Pittsburgh, Locomotive and Car Works of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Richmond Locomotive and Machine Works of Richmond, Virginia Cook Locomotive and Machine Works of Paterson, New Jersey, Rhode Island Locomotive. Works of Providence, Rhode Island, Manchester. Locomotive Works of Manchester, New Hampshire, Dixon Manufacturing Company of Scranton, Pennsylvania. This wasn't a friendly handshake deal, it was a strategic move born out of necessity. Each company brought its own strengths, its patents, its skilled workforce, and its existing order books to the new entity. The goal was to create a powerhouse capable of dictating terms, streamlining production, and cornering a significant portion of the burgeoning locomotive market. The sheer scale of this merger, bringing together so many formerly rival firms, was revolutionary for its time, marking a new era of industrial consolidation in America. The immediate aftermath of the ALCO merger was a complex undertaking. Integrating 8 different companies, each with its own corporate culture, manufacturing processes, and design philosophies was no small feat. There were initial challenges in standardizing parts, consolidating management, and streamlining production across so many different plants. However, the strategic advantages quickly became apparent. With a massive combined capacity, ALCO could now take on much larger orders and negotiate more favorable terms with suppliers and railroad companies. They began to implement standardized designs and manufacturing techniques, which led to greater efficiency and lower costs. ALCO quickly established itself as the second largest locomotive builder in the United States, second only to the venerable Baldwin Locomotive Works. This powerful duopoly effectively ended the era of fragmented competition, bringing a new sense of order and scale to the industry. ALCO's early decades were marked by tremendous success, especially in the production of steam locomotives. They built some of the most iconic and powerful steam engines that ever graced American rails, including the formidable Big Boy locomotives, although those came much later and were not exclusively ALCO. They innovated in design, introduced new technologies, and consistently met the ever-increasing demands of a growing railroad network. The company's diverse manufacturing base allowed it to produce a wide range of locomotives, from small industrial switchers to massive mainline freight haulers, catering to the specific needs of various railroads across the country. The consolidation that formed ALCO had indeed transformed it into a dominant force, fulfilling the very reason for its shocking creation. While ALCO enjoyed significant success with steam locomotives for many decades, a new technology was slowly emerging that would fundamentally change the industry: the diesel-electric locomotive. For a company so deeply rooted in the tradition of steam, this presented a profound challenge. ALCO, alongside other major players, initially viewed diesel as a novelty, perhaps suitable for small switching operations, but certainly not a replacement for the brute force of steam on mainline routes. However, the advantages of diesel were undeniable: greater fuel efficiency, less maintenance, and the ability to operate for longer periods without needing to take on water or fuel. By the 1930s, General Motors' Electromotive Division, EMD, began to aggressively push its diesel locomotive designs, quickly gaining traction with railroads eager to modernize their fleets. ALCO, having been formed to consolidate and dominate, now found itself on the defensive, struggling to adapt to this revolutionary shift. ALCO did eventually enter the diesel market, partnering with General Electric for electrical components, and produced a range of successful diesel-electric locomotives. Models like the ALCO PA and FA series became quite popular, known for their distinctive styling and powerful performance. But the company was always playing catch-up to EMD, which had committed fully to diesel early on. The very strength that had propelled ALCO to greatness, its expertise in steam, became a hindrance in the face of new technology. The company found itself in a difficult position, needing to manage the decline of its lucrative steam business while simultaneously investing heavily in the uncertain future of diesel. Despite its efforts, ALCO never fully regained the market dominance it held in the steam era. EMD consistently outmaneuvered them, capturing a larger share of the diesel market. ALCO struggled with various issues, including inconsistent product quality, labor disputes, and a lack of sustained investment in research and development compared to its rivals. The company, which had been born out of consolidation to ensure survival, now faced a new kind of existential threat. Over the 1950s and 1960s, ALCO's market share steadily eroded. They continued to produce locomotives, but the orders became less frequent, and their financial situation grew increasingly precarious. By the mid-1960s, the writing was on the wall. The once mighty American Locomotive Company, a titan born from the merger of 8 smaller firms, ceased locomotive production in the United States in 1969. Its assets and designs were eventually sold off, and the name, once synonymous with powerful American locomotives, faded from the industry. The story of ALCO is a compelling one, a narrative that begins with desperation and ends with decline, illustrating the relentless march of technological progress and market forces. It stands as a testament to the power of consolidation in a chaotic market, and also as a cautionary tale of how even the largest entities can struggle to adapt to fundamental shifts in technology and consumer demand. The shocking reason for its creation? The fierce, unyielding competition that forced rival companies to unite, ultimately shaped its entire existence, from its grand rise to its eventual fall. The journey of ALCO, the American Locomotive Company, is a profound example of industrial evolution. It began not from a grand invention, but from the brutal necessity of consolidation, as 8 independent locomotive builders merged to escape ruinous competition and create a market giant. This strategic move allowed ALCO to dominate the steam locomotive era, building an incredible legacy of power and innovation. However, the company's struggle to adapt to the advent of diesel technology ultimately led to its decline, marking the end of an era for a once unrivaled industrial powerhouse. If you found ALCO's incredible story of formation and transformation as fascinating as we did, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the unexpected histories behind some of the world's most iconic industries, and share your thoughts on ALCO's legacy in the comments below.